welcome back to the Kyber Collective. I'm one of your three hosts, Flowers, and I'm joined by Annie.
Hello.
And Sig.
Hi!
Today, we're tackling Attack of the Clones.
Yes!
I don't know if anyone knows this, but I love Attack of the Clones. And I have been anxious and excited and looking forward to covering this movie pretty much since we thought about this podcast. So just mind me, I'm going to be a very, very upbeat and excited, and we're just going to get into every single thing. There's so much packed in this movie and this story. It's a lot. So we're going to have some good amount of fun. Mm-hmm. So I thought we can start with, so what I ended up doing was I watched some making of this movie. I watched the movie again. I read a bit of the book. And I thought we could start with this quote of George Lucas, and I'll dive into it. He says, "To get anything done, you have to take a certain amount of risk." And I feel like the risks that he took in this movie was, well, the story, and risks with Anakin's character exploration in Attack of the Clones. Even risk in the filming style and camera work. I mean, he worked with CGI and he shot this movie. I think this is the first Star Wars movie shot entirely in digital. You know, he did a lot of gambles. We talked about in The Phantom Menace on just how much of a gamble the prequels were when he was developing them. And I think that went even further in Attack of the Clones. So do you think, knowing the story and knowing how things pan out, do you think these risks were worth taking? And do you think that they were executed well?
I definitely think they were worth taking.
Yeah.
And they were executed as well as he could execute them at the time. Like, he was inventing technology.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Attack of the Clones holds up, I think. Like, Camino is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
The Kaminoans.
Ocean planet.
Yeah, because I imagine most of that is digital.
Yeah.
Certainly the Kaminoans are, and they're delightfully creepy.
Yeah.
But, like, I buy them still. Like, I rewatch them. I mean, you know, you can tell they're digital, but, like, I buy them. I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the concepts in it, like the battle at Geonosis holds up for sure. And the Geonosians, again, like, creepy, but really good alien design. Like, before the onset of CGI, really all aliens had to be humanoid because you were putting people in the suits. So, like, the fact that you have these creepy bugs, I think is really, really well done. And like, a lot of stuff in Star Wars does really well with sound. And I think Attack of the Clones is the best movie for, there's that, like, sonic pulse that Jango fires at Obi-Wan. That's incredible. The sound of the Geonosians is really, really creepy in the caves, the, like, clicking. It's really well done. Like, there's some really great stuff in this film that holds up.
The Geonosians are so distinct too. Like, their sound, even their language is so interesting. Just the way how did they come up with these ideas? It's always so cool to see. You raised a good point in, you know, using audio for storytelling. I mean, George Lucas has said that technology is used to tell a story, and I think that really hit home with Attack of the Clones. But another thing is, I guess, the gamble on Anakin's story, which we touched upon. And this proved to be quite contentious. You know, Attack of the Clones giving us probably our first real Star Wars romance. I guess you can say Leia and Han Solo, but that was kind of its own.
It's better than this.
There are a lot of things that we can talk about with with Attack of the Clones. I think one of the most widely panned thing is the romance, but also in particular Anakin, and Anakin and the romance and all of that. So, how would you describe this? Like, the direction that was taken with him?
There was clearly a decision made to have a really flat affect, because he loses that in the next movie, and it's much better. And I mean, Hayden has obviously done other projects, so it's not Hayden's normal acting. He doesn't deliberately do that. So there's clearly a conscious choice to have this really flat affect, but I have never thought that it works. I think it's hilarious. I think it's endearing. It's one of my favorite things to quote, like if you are also suffering as I am, then please, like, it's just, it's so funny, but it's not good. And it makes what is already not the best dialogue that has ever been written, like, punishing. It's like watching, like, the world's worst school play right in the middle of what is otherwise a really enjoyable film. Like,
I know.
I would never erase I Hate Sand, though.
No.
I love that. It's given us so much.
Well, this is the thing.
So many memes.
I'm at war because I love all of it now. Like, I think it's so funny. And the fact that this is, like, this is the way Anakin talks. Like, that Obi-Wan had to raise this. That he lived with years and years of, Master, I would like a sandwich, but I fear I cannot. Like, just...
Oh my god.
There is nothing about it that isn't hysterically funny, but if you aren't already filled with overwhelming endearment for Anakin, it's very painful to sit through.
Yeah. I love this visual that you've just given me of, like, Obi-Wan raising, like, let's say a 13-year-old Anakin. And he's like, Master, the toaster is broken. If this fills you with as much agony as it does to me, tell me.
Master, I have no clean socks. If you are suffering as I am,
please tell me.
Please tell me.
I will do laundry. Oh my god.
Master, the spaghetti has burned.
It just, everything about it, and it's so formal, it's so funny.
It's so formal.
It's just like, I don't know whether thought was put into this, but, like, I imagine it's Anakin trying to be, like, posh so that he doesn't sound like he's from, like, Outer Rim Hicksville or something. Like, this is clearly an affect.
It's clearly an affect. He's trying to impress Padme.
Oh my god,
the former queen. Like, he's from Tatooine.
Yeah.
I don't know if as much thought went into that as that, but, you know.
She is very beautiful for a senator.
For a senator, I mean.
Exactly. You're very beautiful for a senator, I mean. Oh my god, that part was so cringe.
Anakin.
Yeah.
And then when he's, like, talking back to Obi-Wan, you're just like, oh my god, Anakin, shut up.
Yeah, everything about that hurts me. It looks like Obi-Wan wants to jump out of the film, and I think that's very relatable. But the weirdest bit is when they, like, start talking about the dream, and he's like, oh, I've been dreaming about my mother. And he's like, I'd much rather be dreaming about Padme. And it's like... You guys have a very open relationship.
Yeah, you said the quiet part out loud, Anakin.
The thing that I noticed, though, is Anakin will talk to anyone who's willing to listen to him.
He will, yeah.
He does this with Jar Jar.
Oh my god.
Jar Jar's like, she was so happy to see you. And he was like, she barely recognizing Jar Jar. Everything's terrible.
They're BFFs.
In the book, this conversation is much longer, between Jar Jar and Anakin, and he's about to repeat himself when Jar Jar's like, no, everything's fine, and he's like, no, everything's not fine, everything is terrible, and he only gets cut off because Obi-Wan shows up, and he's like, oh. But he really will, he's very, it makes me think of, like, any moments alone between Mace Windu and Padawan Anakin Skywalker.
Oh my god.
Him just being very blunt in what exactly he's thinking and feeling in the moment is something I wish we'd seen more with the other Jedi, between him and other Jedi. Because he goes to Padme's apartment when she's packing for Naboo, and he just starts unloading all of his Obi-Wan angst onto her, and she just, like, gives him this look, and, like, learning's part of growing.
Yeah, like, I'm a senator, son. Like, why are you telling me all this?
Yeah.
Just like, our mentors are the ones who are most critical of us, and that's how we learn. I don't know. He's got some problems. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah. It's such it's a fascinating character choice that was made. I mean, I think the dialogue just needs fine tuning, because the everything that's underneath what's being said, I think, is really good. Like, I like the fact that Anakin is way too big for his britches and doesn't really understand. He's at that cusp of teenagerhood that we all go through, where you think you're the hottest shit and you know everything, and you've yet to discover how much you don't know. And so he's like, I'm done. I've learned the Force. I'm so good at it. I'm better than Obi-Wan. They should hire me. Yep. And it's like, and like, you know, him being fed up and him having a very uncomfortable crush again. A teenager staple, like, it's all fine. The content is fine. Even them having this debate about whether or not it's a good idea to be in a relationship. Yeah, that's good. I'm on board with all of it. The dialogue needed a fine tune, and and maybe not the choice to make everything extremely monotone.
The monotone, the flat affect was certainly not helping him in this movie. But I think that's a good place to discuss the dialogue. People have been really critical of the prequels for the dialogue, but I think they were critical mostly of Attack of the Clones for the dialogue. It is difficult. I've watched this movie many times, and it's my favorite one. And it is still, to this day, very difficult to get through some of the Anakin and Padme scenes.
Yeah, he's a creeper.
He is a creeper. In fact, I was reading the book of the novelization of Attack of the Clones, and there's a part of where Padme's in her room. She just got to her apartments where Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to watch over her. And she's like combing her hair and she's thinking about, wow, how much Anakin has changed. And then she's like, what was he looking at her like that for? And then she remembers that she's on camera and he's going to be watching her. And she is so uncomfortable. She's like, I'm just going to cover these cameras. So there is
interesting.
Yeah. It's not like she's thinking he's a creep, but she's also like, I don't really want him watching me.
Well, she says there is a line that even makes it into the film about how uncomfortable she is when he stares at her. Like,
she wasn't about that.
No.
And I think her image of little Annie and adult Annie were not merging well for her in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that a person like Padme would fall in love with Anakin is inexplicable to me. Like, when you watch them talk about politics and he's like, well, you know, like a benevolent dictator would be pretty good. And she's like, what? And you just think, there is no way that this will, like, the most questionable judgment. I don't even have words for how mismatched they are.
She's a senator. Could you imagine marrying somebody who... I mean, that would be like me marrying somebody who never watched Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does feel very shoehorned.
Yeah.
But also, like, the people who complain about the dialogue, I think they need to be more specific or they're liars, because the dialogue in the romance stuff is bad. I agree.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's dialogue is some of the best writing that has ever... I'm sorry, but that's why I'm here, and all of the stupid bits that you don't want to sell me death sticks, you want to go back and rethink your life, like, everything he says in this movie is the funniest thing I've ever heard. Everything he does in this movie is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, that writing was fine. I would not change. No notes.
Dude, Obi-Wan, he could just say one word and it's the most perfect word ever. Like, possibly.
And good job.
His delivery and all of it, that sass, that Obi-Wan sass,
so good.
Really was at its peak, I think, in this movie, because he's so over it. He's over everything. He's tired. His Padawan is like doing who knows what.
Yeah.
There's like a clone army that on Kamino, he has to emergency FaceTime the Jedi Council and be like, you guys.
He had to act like he ordered this army, and he's like, that's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here. And then Count Dooku showing up in that, when he's like in that floaty device. And then immediately Obi-Wan's like, traitor.
Okay, Christopher Lee as well, though. Again, another man who had fantastic dialogue, because everything he says is so funny when he's like, no, my friend, it was a terrible misunderstanding. You don't understand. I'm very upset. And you're just like...
He's such a gem.
Oh
my God.
Amazing.
It may take a little while to secure your release. It's true though, like there's so many characters. Like the rest of the movie I think is pretty solid with the dialogue. They're important, the things that are said, like the Jedi Council bits where Yoda and Windu have a couple of discussions. You have Yoda sensing the dark side. You have Palpatine being like, so they've finally given you an assignment. You know, doing his insidious little mind work on Anakin. There's a lot that was, I think, done right with the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just Anakin and Padme that got the shaft.
Yeah, I think he needed like a romance writer to just take it off his hands and, you know, spice it up a bit.
Spice it up. Make it a little more palatable.
Yeah,
consult a woman.
Get Shonda Rhimes in.
Yeah, exactly. Please, because no woman would have...
No.
Oh my gosh.
I think so I admittedly have not finished the book because time was not my ally this week, but I did start it, and the book touches on some of the deleted scenes that were in Attack of the Clones, which is where Padme interacts with her family, and and I think what they're setting up in the book was how her desire and longing to have a settled life and have a family and have somebody that loves her for her and not just the senator and not just like the queen of Naboo and not for all of these other factors, and seeing her as herself. And I think what they're trying to say is that that's what Anakin was, and perhaps the first person who was like that with her. And unfortunately, that was, I guess, her own downfall. Yeah, that is the only rationalization I can see of why Padme, because, oh my God, there's a lot of red flags.
There's so many red flags.
So many.
And I mean, I just can't get, he's just such a creeper in that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Especially on Tatooine when he comes back from having killed the Tusken Raiders, and he tells Padme that I killed them and the women and the children too, and he hates them, and there's not exactly remorse there. He's just very angry.
No.
Yeah.
And like Padme's response to that was like, everyone gets angry. And I was like, girl, no, he just admitted to like killing a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Specifically innocent people who would not have been involved in whatever was happening there.
Well, it's an interesting point for Padme, really, because it seems to run contrary to her character, which is all for pacifism. Certainly, if you include the Clone Wars too. And so she's either forgiving it because she has the hots for Anakin, or she's just like a low-key racist against the Tuskens. I don't know which one of them it is, but they're both bad.
Yeah, at the time, I don't think that they were viewing the Tuskens as like they do on The Mandalorian and on the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
the Tuskens were still like these...
It's true, but I think for Anakin's actions to matter, you have to value them. Otherwise,
it's true.
I mean, it would be a bit gross if he like slaughtered a herd of cows or something, but like you have to view them as people for it to have the gravity of how monstrous an act it is. And yet Padme doesn't seem to share that, because she's just like, it's okay to be angry. It's like, it's gone a little bit beyond that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the specific admission that he like didn't just kill them. He wiped out like the kids and the women and you know, that's a specific it's a specific line that's meant to be there to show just the monstrosity of his behavior in this moment of despair that he had. Yeah. Red flags, lots of red flags. And it does make me question, like, what was it about him that really just had Padme overlook a lot of things that normally I think she would have been very wary of.
Was it the chosen one thing?
Did she really know that, though?
I doubt
I'm not sure.
I doubt it at that point she would.
Yeah.
I guess, like, if you see somebody, like, float a pear in front of you, you're impressed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about the sexy pear.
Sexy pear, exactly. That was a very sexy evening that they had.
It's also one of my most like funniest bits of CGI, because when she eats the pear, you just see it slide and disappear, and her mouth just disappears right down her throat. There's no chewing that happens. The CGI is always a delight to.
Is a special Nabooian melting pear.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this because I rewatched that scene, and she's like literally about to dig into that pear, and he's just like, oh, and then he like floats it to him, and I'm like, if you had done that while I was eating dinner, we would have a lot of problems.
She was gonna eat it with a knife and a fork.
I know,
pear, wasn't she?
Yeah, that actually bothers me a lot.
It's true.
Wow,
she's eating a pear with a knife and a fork.
It's just too much, like, girl.
Technically, so did Anakin, because he used a knife to cut into it.
He does. He inhabits like two very different spectrums of the eating world, because he eats pears with a knife and fork, but also eats bugs.
You eat bugs. Yeah. Is that canon or is that fanon?
It's the original, the earlier animated Clone Wars. So I think that counts as canon.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's so true. Yeah,
he's a bug eater.
He'll eat a bug, yeah, for sure. So yeah, there lots of choices were made by Padme and various other decisions. There's also the other part of this story, which is the political backdrop. Mm-hmm. I would say this is the core of the film, because so much of the story is politically motivated. Like, the separatist movement is introduced, which is headed by Count Dooku. The Military Creation Act of the Republic, which is actually, I think, the purpose of the movie, which was to vote on whether they should create a military. And Padme, and like the whole, I mean, technically the story centers on Padme's assassination attempt, because she is such an important figure to the opposition of this movement that they're trying to kill her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this undercurrent of feeling like democracy is not working anymore. And I think there was a conversation that was had between Padme and the current queen of Naboo, Queen Jamilia. And her comment was, the minute we stop thinking democracy would work, that's when we lose everything, which is really good foreshadowing for what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also, the clones that were made, and the clone army, and then the droid army, and then granting Palpatine emergency powers. Mm-hmm. There's so much that happens in this film that is going to propel us to what happens in the end. So what did you guys take from the politics of Attack of the Clones? I know that's a pretty broad question, but there's just, the dominoes that were put in place.
Yeah. I guess one of the most interesting questions to me is around the clone army and what the Jedi do once they discover it.
Yeah.
And the decision Yoda makes to bring the clones to Geonosis. Because that is what launches the war, solidifies the clone army as an army of the Republic, and gets the Jedi involved in the conflict.
Yeah.
And results in them being generals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a very good argument can be made that the correct course of action might have actually been to let Obi-Wan and Anakin die, or to not have brought in the clones, which would have resulted in a massacre for the Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very clear that they're backed into a corner, and I don't think it's an unreasonable stance for Yoda to have taken. And it's one of those things where it's like, as you said, all the dominoes have been lined up. I mean, it's almost like a little trail that they've been let out to follow. And in the moment, he brings the clone army down to save the Jedi on the surface from definite death. But if you look at kind of the bigger picture, I think the only way to win the game is probably not to have played the game, if there is any way to win it all.
Yeah. And it comes down to, they were willing to risk a lot to save Obi-Wan, because that's what ends up happening.
That is. And I think that Anakin and Padme's decision to go is extremely foolish, certainly involving a senator in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would have been easier to extricate just Obi-Wan. Or worst case scenario, lose just Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I think he would have gotten out of it somehow.
Yeah.
It was just him.
Yeah.
He would have figured something out.
Yeah. I find the decision they make to intervene in numbers and by force interesting, and I think that it's really obvious how they got backed into that corner, but I think that's one of the moments that really dooms the Jedi Order.
The minute they start using that.
Yeah, when they militarize.
Yeah, and I think it's quite telling, I guess, that you have the two major opposition to militarization, Padme, and then also the peaceful order of the Jedi are present at the start of the conflict and are violent at the start of the conflict. I mean, Padme is just like, aggressive negotiations, pow, pow. Like,
pow, pow.
you know, that Palpatine has already won because he has their buy-in by backing them into the corner to the point where they have to react.
Yeah. It's a bunch of chess pieces that he strategically laid out.
Yeah, he put all of the pieces on, and it was like he'd been meticulously planning for a very long time.
Yeah, creep.
And I'm reminded of, like, you know, Game of Thrones, when right before the Battle of the Bastards, and Sansa's like, just don't do what he wants you to do. And John's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And that's how that's how to fight Palpatine. Just don't do what he wants you to do. But all they did was what he wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
It's incredibly frustrating. And the more you think, you like read into what's being said, because there's quite a bit of mystery that goes on in this movie as well.
Yeah.
There's this concept of why was this clone army made? Okay, so 10 years ago, or maybe more than 10 years ago, Jedi Council member Sifo Dyas put in an order for this clone army. Why did he do that? Nobody knew about it. Someone called Lord Tyrannus had orchestrated and recruited Jango Fett, who we know is Count Dooku. That also happened 10 years ago. Palpatine getting into office 10 years ago. A lot of things, I mean, you can see from this movie, so much groundwork was done that you didn't see in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And also as a result of the Phantom Menace, because of course, Qui-Gon dying, I think, is what catapulted Dooku on the path that he ultimately took. Although I don't really remember, was he already on the dark side before that? Or
I can't remember what's canon now, because I think it's actually Darth Plagueis, not Palpatine, but the book that mentions specifically that Qui-Gon's death catapulted Dooku into the arms of the dark side is now Legends. And I think there might be canon that suggests he actually was already gone from the Order prior to Qui-Gon's death. But I get them very confused.
It's getting a little muddy.
Yeah.
Because I do remember in Master and Apprentice, which I think is considered canon.
That's canon, yeah.
Yeah, he's already not, or I should say he's not really thinking in the Jedi mindset. He's more of the dark side of the Force by then. And I think he was trying to recruit Rael Averross by the end of that book. So he was already on his kind of path there. Regardless, Dooku was doing his plannings and everyone was doing their plannings. And it was very meticulously laid out.
Well, I mean, Attack of the Clones is an exercise in frustration in questions that never get answered. And there are really obvious reasons why they don't get answered. It's because there's so much going on so fast. There's no time. But, you know, you have someone hired Jango Fett.
Yeah.
Jango Fett is standing next to Dooku and the Separatists at Geonosis, but was the template for the clone army that the Republic is now using. And he's killed immediately, so no one gets to ask him any questions. But it's very obvious that there's he's working for the people who want to assassinate Padme, which gets traced back to Dooku. And it's there's so much here that is it's all these pieces of information that come so close to an answer, but never quite get unpicked. The whole way through, and it's everyone is just that little bit blind, willfully blind, busy, that it never quite
pulls together.
Exactly. And it's there's one piece missing that would just solve the whole thing.
It's remarkable just how well orchestrated this was, and how perhaps even Palpatine was thinking on the pressure that he would put on both on the Senate and the Jedi, and that they wouldn't be able to think. And with the dark side, I mean, the Force being clouded by the dark side, it makes it that much harder.
I think it's sort of implied in the Clone Wars that they're constantly, that Palpatine is playing both sides. And of course, the moment anyone has a chance to breathe and think about anything, he gives information to one side that pushes the other, that sends them back out to the field, so that nobody is ever I mean, you wouldn't really have time to investigate anything.
Yeah, there's a loss on either side. There's no actual winning.
Yes.
And the only one winning is ultimately Palpatine.
Yeah.
Even his allies don't win, but that's the story for Revenge of the Sith of like what ends up happening to the Separatists.
Yeah.
The next segment I have fondly titled "The Force Made Me Do It." There's a lot of Force talk that happens in Attack of the Clones. The first being the fact that the Force is clouded by the dark side in this movie, which is why a lot of things were happening without the Jedi realizing it until it was too late. I mean, a lot happened in 10 years that they weren't seeing. So it's been a slow and gradual progression to the point where Windu in this film says, we're going to have to tell the Senate that we no longer can see through the Force. And Yoda's response to this was, if we tell the Senate that we can't use our abilities, the only people who know this would be the Sith. But if we tell everybody, our adversaries are going to multiply. And so he makes this choice for, I guess, the Jedi in general, that we're not going to let anyone know that we are not at 100%. So that was an interesting discussion, I think, on their nervousness around how their own abilities are failing them.
Yeah.
And how the Force can be something that gets shrouded and manipulated, that they can't use it to their advantage anymore. I saw this interesting discussion somewhere, I don't remember where, about how it's not just that the Sith are clouding the Force. There's a lot of darkness happening in the galaxy, which is propelling this. It's already out of balance because you have like the Hutts who are doing their Huttly things. You know, it's not. You have a lot of greed and what's happening in the galaxy, and people in the Senate who are doing things motivated by greed and voting things in ways that are not helpful. You have the Separatists, and you have all this stuff happening. A lot of conflicting things that could throw something out of balance. So knowing what we know, what do you think could have been actually done at this stage that could have brought balance to the Force, that could have prevented, you know, the many atrocities that later happened? Because I feel like Attack of the Clones was the turning point of things kind of being like at the point of no return.
See, I've always thought that the second the Clone Wars started, the Jedi have already lost.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure that they're presumably at some stages a way out of the trap, but I think the moment that the trap is sprung is so far in advance of the moment that anyone realizes. They don't, by the time towards the end of Revenge of the Sith, they're obviously aware, and Yoda in particular seems to be increasingly aware that something is coming, but he's not able to put a finger on it, and no one knows how to react to it. But I think by the time they have anything to react to, they're already screwed. And by the time you have this army of clones, I mean, like I said earlier, the only way to win is maybe not to play, but can you ethically let this army fight and take... I mean, I think if the Jedi Order did anything wrong, it was militarizing.
Yes, 100%.
But that said, leaving the clones to fend for themselves with the entire technically, even though it wasn't the whole order, a Jedi did put in the order that brought them into existence, and then leaving them out to hang seems ethically a bit uncomfortable as well. I don't know, man. I mean, it's not a decision I would ever have to want to make, but I think they were doomed. And there is something somewhat satisfying about that narratively, not emotionally. That you can do you can make no mistakes and still lose. That's life. That they really were outsmarted in a way that feels predestined. And there have been many people that have made the argument that the Jedi Order was too proud or too hubristic or too myopic in their treatment of Anakin, that I think there's a YouTube video out there, and I'm really sorry that I can't remember who put it together, but they described it as the Jedi Order taking in the Messiah and accidentally handing him over to the devil. But there obviously they're putting a lot of weight on this idea of him as a chosen one, and it almost becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that he is the chosen one, but really not in the way that anyone expects. It takes the death of the entire Jedi Order and then the birth of Luke and the final moment of atonement for him to fulfill his destiny as the chosen one in a way that really no one would have wanted.
No. Yeah, prophecies never turn out the way you think they're going to.
Yes, and so there's this element of, it's that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy thing that they did buy into this idea, and then it shoots them in the back because you should never trust a prophecy.
I know. And you even had Windu in this movie be like, listen, Anakin's supposed to be, I mean, if the prophecy is true, he's supposed to bring back balance to the Force. And then Yoda, I think it's in the book, is like, only if he chooses to follow his destiny can he actually do that. There's a lot of stock taken in the prophecy, and it definitely, I think, shoots them in the foot.
Yeah.
When you have, I guess, your only hope being this thing of things, this will make things better. Anakin's going to make things better.
Yeah.
No, they should have shipped him off to some remote planet somewhere and nobody knows where he was. Kept him far away from Palpatine.
Yeah.
Not that they even knew, but
Yeah.
They didn't even know.
They didn't know.
They had no reason to suspect him. I mean, Obi-Wan is quoted in this movie saying he doesn't trust him because he plays to the whims of other senators' greed and prejudices, and he uses that to his advantage.
Yeah.
It's true. He doesn't trust politicians.
One of Obi-Wan's resounding quotes where he's like, I don't trust Padme either. She's a politician. Your crush is wrong.
Yeah.
You have Anakin like, no, you don't know her like I know her.
Yeah.
Nope.
And same with Palpatine. You had a really interesting point there, Sig, in that it's like they were backed in a corner and these are the choices that they had, right? Like, you can either do nothing and not play the game and allow scores of people to suffer, really. Or you try to help.
Yeah.
And I guess there's an argument there made of, well, this is why the Jedi fail. This is why, And I'm like, I guess this is where your gray Jedi could have come in, because they would have done nothing. Of course, I don't believe in gray Jedi, so we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But inaction is antithetical to the Jedi Code.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think neutrality is itself a form of partisanship. It can be anyway. I think if if there's a war going on and you sit by and do nothing, and one side is obviously an aggressor and the other side is suffering, I think that neutrality in of itself is beneficial to the oppressor. So
yeah.
They're always going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think
try.
Yeah, it's much like what's being quoted in the Kenobi trailer, which is really exciting, is that this compassion is an itch that you cannot stand idly by and watch people suffer. And it really does feel like there is at no point in these films is there a way out. It's almost predestined before we even start The Phantom Menace. Especially with the sort of implication that Darth Plagueis was able to even create life and may therefore have in some way induced the Force to create Anakin. And
I like to think that that's not... Yeah. I like to think of that like as just a dream sequence in the comics.
I mean, I go back and forth. I don't know if I necessarily like the idea that it's literally, but that he brought about the chosen one in some way through manipulation of the Force.
Yeah.
Which sets this ball even further rolling down towards its eventual climax. But it feels like a Greek tragedy, or it feels like just this weight of this predestined doom that there's really no way out of, and that you can militarize with the best of intentions, with the idea of protecting other people, of defending people from oppression, and still lose everything that you valued. And of course, the Clone Wars does a good job of desimplifying the conflict as well. That of course the Separatists do have a point while being very aggressive. I mean, there's multiple examples of the Separatists taking loads of slaves. So I'm very anti-Separatist on that count. But but that there are planets which joined the Separatist cause for good reason. We have plenty of evidence that democracy was falling apart, that there was way too much influence from people like the Trade Federation and the banking clan. So that there were legitimate concerns that were not being addressed. And so it becomes very complicated, and you can only do the best that you can.
I'll tell you what wouldn't have done it is making it so that the Jedi can love and get married.
If only they could bone. If only they could fall in love.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened. It was that simple, you guys.
Yeah.
Let Obi-Wan date. That could have prevented the Clone Wars. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be salty, but sometimes the arguments against the Jedi just really tickle me.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Just let them have sex.
We have talked about the idea of doing an episode that's basically like, what did the Jedi do wrong? I feel like we've touched a lot on it today, but if you have enjoyed this level of salt and would like more, let us know. And we could do a whole episode, possibly maybe dissecting some of the criticism, because there's some criticism I find borderline legitimate, or at least interesting. There's some criticism, like the thing about them not being able to love, that I find at best comical.
They steal children.
Oh yeah, the baby stealing. Yeah,
baby stealing.
Yeah, and of course the Jedi as slavers argument.
Oh yeah. Of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we toyed with like a title that was similarly funny. Like, were they actually like baby snatchers or something like that?
Yeah.
Another thing that the Force made someone do, I guess, would be Anakin, in that he had all these visions about Shmi. He even says at one point to Padme, "I'm sorry, I have no choice," or "I don't have a choice," and he's going to go and rescue his mom because he's seeing these really terrible things. And do you think that was the right choice in that moment?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I think the right choice would have been made earlier, because it's clear he's been having those dreams for a really long time. And it's unclear how much he's talked to Obi-Wan about it. He's obviously talked to Obi-Wan about it. So it's very possible he said everything and Obi-Wan has dismissed it and suggested that he not do it, which would make him finally going to Shmi when he's away from Obi-Wan make more sense. But clearly the right time to do something would have been earlier.
Yeah.
And maybe not. Like, it's all very half-cocked. He's in the middle of protecting Padme. He has good reason to keep her on this planet. He runs off half-cocked to Tatooine. Like, if you've been having dreams for that long, then you could have made plans to, take a secondment.
Yeah. Like, he was definitely having them. I think the book tried to justify it in that in the beginning he couldn't tell if they were visions or they were dreams.
Right.
And then he talks about it with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's like, or they could just be dreams.
Right.
And you're very close to her and you love her deeply. That's not a problem. Of course you would feel worry for her. And he said, similar things to the movie of like, day will pass in time. So that makes me think perhaps they were dreams. But there's other places where he knew they were visions and he didn't disclose that information with anybody. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it ties into the broader theme about kind of predestiny that's present in Attack of the Clones, is that it was something inescapable.
Yeah.
That the knowledge and the opportunity only came after it was too late, and therefore, the die had already been cast. Which thematically is very satisfying.
It is.
It's interesting because it's like bad things are going to happen. Terrible, horrible things are going to happen. How are you going to react to those things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Anakin didn't react so well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
It was tragic. What happened to his mom.
I think, there's also like this broader, and this is not particularly on his choice of rescuing Shmi, but also like just this broader discussion that Attack of the Clones does on Anakin's impulse control and how his decision making actually is. And like, even with the scene where he's flying the speeder to get the assassin, and Obi-Wan is like, this, I don't mind flying, what you're doing is suicide. It's like this thrill seeking, and he's not really listening to Obi-Wan's advice. And it's more so in the book, because Obi-Wan, there's literally a scene that he's screaming. He's like, Obi-Wan's screaming off the top of his head, and you can't hear him because the train's going by. And then he just gets so salty. He's like, "Oh, that's a good plan. Oh no, you're finally listening to me now." Like, I was just like, he is not. He thinks that his judgment. Anakin thinks that his judgment is right and correct because you don't know, because he thinks he has an upper hand on something, and that he doesn't defer to Obi-Wan's wisdom or Obi-Wan's advice because Obi-Wan doesn't know what Anakin's thinking, and this could definitely work in Anakin's mind. And that got me thinking about something, because Anakin was particularly perceptive in the Force, and I don't know if that's something that's just because he was the chosen one, and that he has this incredible midichlorian count. Or there was a really cool line that I read in the book. Let me see if I can find it. Yoda says to Mace Windu that only those who have turned to the dark side can sense the possibilities of the future. Only by probing the dark side can we see.
Huh.
And I feel like perhaps that gives some lens into Anakin's perceptivity or perception in these movies, because he's not really in balance with himself. Although he doesn't quite see things, not that I think he even actively tries to see things through the Force in the topics that Yoda is concerned about. But I thought that was really interesting that he specifically says that the only way we could even access any kind of guidance and information from the Force is if we give in to the dark side right now, because that's how shrouded it is.
Right.
I see a thought in your head, Sig.
I mean, I have always wondered about the nature of Anakin's visions. I feel like this is tying in to what we will inevitably cover in Revenge of the Sith. But
yeah,
Palpatine, he's certainly capable of manipulating Anakin on the basis of these visions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reason why Anakin's fear for Padme's safety is, I mean, it's very legitimated by the fact that Shmi dies. I mean, I've always had a bit of a question in my mind about how much that was... Anakin is the person who harms Padme that results in her death. Yeah. So there's an element of self-fulfilling prophecy there. And what you've just said about Anakin potentially tapping into the dark side that's present, maybe there's an element of manipulation or self-fulfilling prophecy there, or at least that Palpatine was similarly able to tap into the future and was aware of the same information and able to manipulate Anakin.
It's those unending questions that we might never really get a firm answer on.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know how I feel about Palpatine knowing the future like that. I don't know.
It does reverse, though, in the end, because Palpatine can no longer predict because, by the time Luke comes along, his power over the Force, his influence over is starting to wane. And that he can't predict, and he can't foresee Vader turning against him or Luke besting him.
Yeah, when he's like, I have foreseen it. I'm always like,
did you though?
Yeah.
I think for me, like recently, people started talking about how Palpatine was the one that drained Padme's life force, and is the reason why she died, instead of like the whole she just gave up on life and died of a broken heart. And that makes sense, the Palpatine thing. But I'm just like, did Palpatine do everything? Like he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that, and I don't know.
Yeah, are we giving him too much credit? Like he's now responsible for. It's like people who claim responsibility for every atrocity because he's kind of like that. Palpatine totally did so and so thing.
I think, it's also, I mean, it's kind of annoying to me because I like Anakin, but he's a terrible dude. And I think that the fact that Anakin effectively kills Padme by turning on her, by physically harming her and putting her in such a state that she's just like, I fucking can't anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that is a much better story than Palpatine was like, "Ooh, you're dead now." I just he's coming out from stage left in the dark, just it's so unsatisfying. Versus Anakin was so afraid, he gave up everything to save her, and he's actually the person all along that puts her in that position. That's a better story.
Yeah, I think I'm I'm definitely with you. I don't want to take away from the narrative that we were already given.
Yeah.
I think that there's this push to make Anakin right.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily need for that to happen.
I feel like I haven't said enough in case no one knows this by now, but I love him. I do.
We all love him. Yeah.
We all love him. He is one of my top favorite characters. However, he's accountable for his actions.
Oh, yeah.
He's 100% accountable for how he dealt with things and who he put his trust in and what things he put his trust in and his actions.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was Palpatine that made Anakin kill the Tusken party.
Well, and they make it pretty explicit that the dark side is a choice.
Yeah.
That it's the easier route, but it's a decision that you actively make, and you can be manipulated and you can be groomed and you can have the deck stacked against you, but at the end of the day, you are the person that makes that choice. And oh boy, did he make it. I mean, when he made the choice, he committed. So
he sure did.
He sure did. He really went there.
Yeah.
Full steam ahead.
Sure did. So I think that it's important to hold him accountable and also to acknowledge that Anakin's view of the Jedi is not objective. That it's clear that it didn't work for him and that he was not listening or not getting something that he needed or any combination of all of those things. But that doesn't mean the things that Anakin has to say about the Jedi are correct. And that his decision to join the dark side is like logical or correct by extension. Like,
there's a lot of question marks in his resume of actions that he has made.
Yeah,
many.
All right. Do we have any final thoughts? I wanted to do a couple of shout outs before we move on, by the way.
Yes,
of course.
So I guess I have some final thoughts. Yeah, I feel like I haven't touched on at all the things that just make this movie a joy. Yoda making fun of Obi-Wan for losing a planet is up there. Roasting him in front of the entire youngling party practicing. The guy who's selling death sticks, Aelin Sleazebagano.
What's his name?
Aelin Sleazebagano. Sleazebag, basically. Literally called him a sleazebag, trying to sell him death sticks.
What was it? George Lucas hates smoking.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard that. Like that's what that was.
Yeah. He was very clear on where he stands on the death sticks.
Yeah.
Anakin being like, "What you doing?" And Obi-Wan being like, "I'm gonna get a drink." Just knocks back some space tequila.
Well, and he doesn't even order. He just walks up to the bar, like nods, and they give him a shot of something blue. So either he doesn't give a shit. Yeah. He drinks whatever, or he's a regular, and both of those tickle me.
Both of those tickle me. I like to think that he's such a regular that bartender just takes one look and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got you. I had this ready already."
Your usual, Mr. Kenobi.
Your usual, Mr. Kenobi. Here you go. I think we already talked about Anakin's emotional word vomit on anybody who's willing to listen to him.
Yeah.
Top favorite. I love it every time he does it. I know people find this guy really annoying in this movie, but once you've accepted this is how he is.
No, he's awesome. He's actually awesome.
He's hilarious and adorable.
He is. The entire conversation between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan.
Oh my god.
Amazing.
Yeah. Timur, like, he has, like, for playing so many clones, he has very little screen time in either of these films, which is a crime because he's so good.
He
is. He has such swagger. This man. He's just
incredible.
His stare down with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's like, "Have you been as far as Coruscant?" Jango's like, unfazed. He's like, "Possibly." It's just too good. There's just so many gems in this movie.
Just a simple man.
Just a simple man making my way through the galaxy. There's some things that I forgot to even mention that I thought were cool was the Death Star plans on Geonosis and how it was the Geonosians who were planning that and designing, I guess, making the preliminary designs. The use of music in this movie, they played Duel of the Fates when Anakin goes out to the desert to find his mother. They play the Vader theme when he's telling Padme about what he did to them, and then using the Imperial March when at the end of the movie when the clones are all lined up and Palpatine's overlooking his army, and that is actually, in my opinion, the start of the Empire was that moment.
I agree. I remember watching that movie for the first time and hearing that and just being kind of blown away.
And then finally, I thought I'd give a shout out to the Jawas one more time because there's when Anakin's off to find his mom, he stops by the Jawas wherever that big fortress and seems to ask them for directions to find the Tusken Raiders. So justice for Jawas. This is the second time now that they've been helping out. I think they got a bad rep. I think a lot of bad things happened to the Jawas.
Poor Jawas.
Poor Jawas. So yeah, that's my rapid fire. And plus, I can't even recap the amount of funny lines that Obi-Wan says every time he speaks.
He's great. He's so awesome in this movie.
He really is.
Yeah. Well, I was just reminded of, like how you said that he must be a regular at that bar because they know exactly what to give him.
Yeah.
It's like he goes to Dex's diner and like he's best friends with the cook. And just the smile he gets on his face, it's just adorable. I love Obi-Wan. You guys know that.
Yeah. There's this funny thing I saw making rounds on the internet that was like, why does everyone assume Obi-Wan doesn't like hug anybody? He immediately embraces Dex in Dex's diner. He's got friends. He's not like this antisocial hermit.
He knows that everybody in Coruscant. He's friends with everybody.
He is. He's the poster boy, even though he denies it.
Possibly.
Do we have any last sentiments before I catapult you guys into the lightning round? No?
No.
All right. It's a much kinder lightning round.
Okay.
I'm not going to be so brutal. I feel like I was a little hard on you guys before, so this one should be fun. So, Battle of Geonosis. Before that happens, you have Padme, Anakin, Obi-Wan, who are in the arena. Now, I noticed they had a fourth pillar, and it was empty, but there was a fourth pillar. So let's launch ourselves into this theoretical game situation of you guys. You're on that fourth pillar. Who would you want as your arena buddy in this situation?
Obi-Wan.
You think Obi-Wan? He was rolling around a lot in that sand. I mean, he did escape death. I should be clear. You don't have to just pick the three of them. I mean, if you wanted, you can bring out any character in the Star Wars and have them as your arena buddy.
I mean, okay, maybe Mace.
I was going to go with Mace Windu, yeah. The dude's got Vapid. Yeah.
Exactly.
He'll get me the hell out of there.
Yep. He'll chop off some heads.
Yeah.
That's true, he would.
Unless, no.
Yeah.
I'll go with Mace.
I toyed around with the idea of not having a Force sensitive, but I feel like in that situation, you'd really benefit with a Jedi.
Yeah, I think it's worth bringing one. I was tempted to say Grievous if he would definitely be on my side, because I could piggyback ride him and he could just get all 4 lightsabers going.
I was thinking him too, because I was like, he would be so helpful. Full chops and he's done with the whole thing, the whole problem solved. Yeah. And then with the droid army that eventually shows up, I'm sure he'd be quite useful, but he would need to be on our side.
He'd have to be on my side, but then I might piggyback on General Grievous.
My pick was Plo Koon simply because I really love him and I miss him and I want to use him somewhere, so I would volunteer him as my buddy.
He's pretty great though. I mean, yeah. Okay,
so in Attack of the Clones, second question. This movie obviously launched the Clone Wars series. Lots of things. You can tell that, this prequel universe can launch dozens and hundreds of stories just from a single moment. What would you want to see like a mini series of, just based on things that you saw in Attack of the Clones?
I would like to see Cheers in Dex's diner. Where there's like a group of Coruscanti locals and Obi-Wan who hang out in this bar all the time and seem to have no life. And it's just like it's a sitcom.
Yeah, and then Obi-Wan comes in every once in a while and tells some stories, and everybody's like, oh my God.
That would be brilliant. What about you, Annie?
I want a Jedi Academy show.
Yeah.
That's like Hogwarts, but with the Jedi Academy.
Yes, please.
Like the younglings, you know? The kids, their story. Like, what's it like to go to school at the Jedi Academy? It's got to be amazing. Yeah.
I feel like we sort of see that in like maybe the Jedi Quest or Jedi Apprentice, but we don't even see it really, you know? I'd like to see just Jedi Academy shenanigans. I have my disgruntledness with those books. Disgruntledness is not a word. But they make me cranky sometimes. I would like a series that's like properly like just a group of kids in Jedi school doing fun Master Padawan things without anyone getting lost in a war zone and that kind of stuff.
Like fun, like maybe like fun Monster of the Week.
Yeah, you know, exactly. I really love the Monster of the Week format. I mean, it definitely worked. It worked for the X-Files. It can work here.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like
something
mission of the week.
Right, exactly. And I love the Master and Apprentice stuff, but like something where the stakes isn't quite so so crazy.
Like all of their boring political missions, like you're a little 13-year-old Padawan, like you don't get to go to like big fighting places. They send you to like boring diplomacy land where the worst thing that you're going to have to do is read a contract. Like, but like having awkwardly learning diplomacy, having to like have the world's most painful dinner with your master, like it just I want like low stakes, high fun Jedi missions where stupid stuff happens.
We deserve to see just good old Jedi shenanigans. And they're shenanigans in their truest form. Like there's no threat of like war, no like Sith sneakery, and just I want to see their actual lives and conflicts and see that sort of life.
Yeah, and the rituals, the Jedi, you know, how things are done. Maybe like some Crystal Cave action.
I feel like we got some of that in the Clone Wars, but again, the premise was really on the Clone Wars, so you didn't get to see very much of it.
Yeah,
which is why you need it. Mine would be because when Obi-Wan and Anakin go to that bar, right? It's like the I don't want to say underground, but it's like the ground level of Coruscant, right? Clearly there's a nightlife. Clearly people have lives. I mean, you could have like a Friends version of that bar. Or like, I guess How I Met Your Mother to be more accurate. But like, I would love that. Just like the shenanigans that happen there, and random Jedi show up.
Yeah.
You blink and then you look away because there's always something that's going on.
But like, there's so many things you could do with Coruscant. Like you could have like this really grumpy, hardworking PI who like solves murders in the basements of Coruscant. But then every once in a while he runs into a bunch of Jedi who are also investigating, and the Jedi are so fucking annoying. They're like, oh, well, we've sensed the Force presence, so it's definitely this. And he's like, I spent 6 hours going through banking records, and you just took one look. And he just like really hates working with the Jedi because he's like, do you have any idea how much time I spent in the archives looking up the history of building records for this site? And they're just like, the Force said he went that way.
Oh my god, yeah. They would get so frustrated with these Jedi with their like, and it doesn't help the reputation of being these like hokey mystic kind of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if you get to like see the Jedi via the like point of view of this pissed off detective who they're like these hippies that like swan in.
So this movie has so many cool moments. Which moment is the most rewatchable for you, or do you like most look forward to seeing?
It's 100% Wet Kenobi. Like, just like, because his hair is very stupid in this film, and then it's even stupider when he looks like a drowned rat, and then he meets these like weird aliens with long necks, and they're like, we're so pleased to see you, and he's like, what the fuck? And he gets led through, and then there's like thousands of copies of the same dude, food, and he's just like, I don't understand what's happening, but he has to pretend that it's like completely normal and that this is just a Tuesday for him. And yes, the clones for Kuzco, like, just like, it's the best scene of the film. I could watch him meet the Kaminoans on repeat for
He's
the rest
just
of my
having
life.
a meltdown.
Yeah.
You can see it behind his eyes.
He really is.
Yeah. And like him, like when my favorite thing is he's like flustered, but he manages to pull it together like 99% of the way. And he's like, your clones are very impressive. As if this is in any way a normal compliment to give to someone.
I know. He just had to go with it, and he committed.
He's like, I'm committed to small talk. I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna compliment your clones,
you mentioned
sir.
clones. Could you tell me where they came from and why you made them for me?
Yeah.
Anytime Obi-Wan talks, like the sass, like I think his lightsaber skills in that one is really fun. Like when the Battle of Geonosis, he does like a lightsaber twirl, and then he just goes, just bam, like
yeah.
and then his hair finally is good. I really like that part. The
worst part is I know exactly which one you mean.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. The one moment his hair is good.
We all lived for that moment when his hair finally came out of his very tightly pressed gel.
Yeah.
His mullet.
His mullet.
People, by the way, hate this mullet.
I do, yes.
It's my mullet. I'm very fond of him in his mullet phase because it's so silly.
Yeah.
He was going for a look.
It's good. I mean, it's fine. He's very distinctive in each movie.
It's like showing the stages of his maturity. Of course he had a mullet phase.
Yeah.
But he has the energy of like that he cut his own hair for the first two films, and by the third one he finally went to a professional.
He did. He finally went to a barber.
Oh man. And seeing his hair get untidy is always a delight because everything else about him is so put together and so in place. God forbid you see a little bit of wrist. God forbid.
God forbid.
I think mine, I have two. You probably know which ones. But I love the speeder chase. It's my favorite. I used to reenact that when I was a kid. I would pretend I was on that speeder and jump around on my bed and jump off the speeder like Anakin does and pretend I'm flying. And it was always so fun. And I love his comments in that whole scene. He's just so tired. He's just like, could you listen to me once? Just once. Why are you going through this power coupling? We are now getting electrocuted.
Doesn't he even say like how many times? I say this to you every time. Stop electrocuting us.
He does. He says that, which it's just the image of them going through this over and over. Obi-Wan barely holding
and him losing his
lightsaber over and over. Him, Anakin yeeting himself off the speeder, and him and Obi-Wan being like, I hate it when he does that. So he does that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so delightful. It gives you a little snapshot in their day-to-day relationship. And I want more. I want more of it.
Yeah.
So I think we have efficiently wrapped up Attack of the Clones. We've had a good chat. Great movie.
Great movie.
Just love it when those clones attack.
To any of our listeners, if you would like to do your own lightning round, please leave a comment below. We would love to see your thoughts on how you would answer these questions. But thanks for tuning in to the Kyber Collective. If you like what you heard, please give us a like. And if you've got something to say to us, drop a comment below. Both of these things help make us easier to find for other fans and are the best way you can support our work. If you'd like to keep up to date with our episodes, you can subscribe, and you can always talk to us on Twitter at Kyber Collective. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and until then, remember, the crystal is the heart of the blade. The heart is the crystal of the Jedi. The Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi. You are one.